أهلا وسهلا بكم في هذه الحلقة الجديدة من جسور، وضيفي اليوم هو الحاخام ديفيد وايس، وهو الناطق الرسمي باسم منظمة ناطوري كارتا المعروفة بمعاداتها للصهيونية. Rabbi Weiss, welcome again to London.
Shukran, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. Now, you've just come from Paris, where you demonstrated or organized a small rally in support of the Palestinian cause on the occasion of the conference. But you were not left alone. What happened?
The Zionists wanted to tell the world what they are. They wanted to show the world who they are. So simply they attacked us. They fell on us. One of our rabbis, they struck brutally. You can see these pictures. Usually they would say it didn't happen, but some reporter happened to be taking pictures and caught it. They just really gave him, socked him in the eye and thanked.
Actually, we have a clip. Let's watch the clip together, and then we will continue to tell me what's going on. So this guy with the helmet who attacked your colleague is a Zionist.
Oh yes, when they took him to the police, he's well known. The Zionists have a mafia over there in France. They have organizations too. I found out there's like JDL. They call it League of Jewish Defense. I think in America they call it JDL. There is
Jewish Defense League.
Yeah, so over there it's a League of the Jewish Defense, something like that. And then they have Beitar. They have two organizations. And they attacked me also. I was wearing my keffiyeh, and they grabbed it, and I tried to pull it back, and then they burnt it. They grabbed it away, and they hit the truck. They started bashing the van that we had, and we just barely got away from there. But we're used to this. I mean, we know that this is what Zionists do, and with the help.
Now, what do the Zionists think of you? How do they perceive you?
We're their mortal enemies because we undermine their legitimacy. We tell the world that they're con artists, that the whole concept of what they are is simply a facade. It's false. The whole thing is a charade. There's no truth or basis in what they're coming. They've hijacked the Star of David. They've hijacked the name Israel. They came and claimed, they put on this pious look as if they're coming in the name of God to take the land because God gave it to them, when all the rabbinical authorities, everyone who knows their Judaism, says, wait a minute, we are expressly forbidden to have a Jewish state for 2,000 years. We, as Jews, never attempted to make our own state. We're not allowed to. And certainly, and that would be even in uninhabited land, and certainly not by stealing the land from another people. And what type of people? The Muslim countries and in Palestine, they embraced the Jewish people when we escaped from other lands. They gave us a home, a safe haven. And with the hope of the Almighty, He should give me the right words to sanctify His name and bring peace. We always pray. I pray for that. It is so clearly the edict of the Torah that Jews are forbidden to have even 1 centimeter of Jewish sovereignty, and another command is that we have to show gratitude that is done for us whenever anything is done good. So besides we're not allowed to steal, we have a special obligation for the people of the Muslim countries who helped us, that we should do good to them. And here the Zionists come, and in order to claim that they have a right to the land, they say, oh, they wave the Bible as if it says there that they should have it, and they add to that the Muslims as a whole and the Palestinian people are anti-Semitic, that they hate the Jews because of their religion. It is so repugnant and despicable. Our hearts cry we're frustrated, humiliated, because, like I say, we have generations of Jews who are still alive. Here in London, you have people 8th generation Palestinian who remember how they were living in the same courtyards, and not only in Palestine, in every Arab and Muslim land.
Well, Rabbi, if you can explain this to me, it's a bit difficult to understand. I mean, people who see you now,
Yes.
the way you appear, there are thousands of Jews with a similar appearance who live in Palestine.
Yes.
And they live in Palestine permanently.
Yes.
Now, are they Zionists or are they not Zionists? Because
Right.
I mean, we understand this because this will lead us to the
Yes.
to the problem that happened recently, and we'll talk about it in a minute. But these religious Jews who observant Jews and live in Palestine, don't they believe in the same thing as you believe?
They certainly do. The ones who are in the very religious quarters, and then many Jews who are spread out, are totally anti-Zionist. You can go to our site, NKUSA, but you can see here when they took up the last chief rabbi. This is in he's still alive. And I'll show a picture of him now. In 2013, you see hundreds of thousands of Jews gathered in the streets. And to welcome him as chief rabbi, and then they would demonstrate constantly. We have demonstrations.
They are anti-Zionist?
They're anti-Zionist. If you come to the very religious quarters, whether it's in Meah She'arim, that's in the very religious quarters in Jerusalem, or you come to in New York, where Williamsburg, right across from Manhattan, many people visit Manhattan. Right across, you can see the largest concentration of religious Jews. It's right across. It's called the Williamsburg Bridge. Manhattan is an island that's connected by bridges. Right across is the largest Jewish community. There is not one single Israeli flag. If you go to Stanfield Hills here, you'll find there's not an Israeli flag.
Yeah, but if we go back to the Jewish community that lives in Palestine today,
yes.
If they are anti-Zionists,
yes.
and if they don't recognize the legitimacy of the State of Israel,
yes.
how come that they live there and they have Israeli citizenship?
Okay.
How do we explain this?
Right. There, simply, first of all, the Jewish community was living there hundreds of years. And then the Zionists came, starting from Britain, started with Chaim Weizmann, and from Austria, Herzl. The names should be obliterated.
So these are pre-Zionist Jews?
Yeah,
pre-Zionism?
Not the core community was lived there from all the generations. But then even afterwards, like by the Second World War, and Jews were manipulated a lot to go there because they were like in refugee camps and so forth, and they were taken there by boats and things. The Zionists manipulated that they should, because they wanted to fill, they needed cannon fodder or whatever, they wanted to fill up the land. But when the Jews went there, the religious gravitated to the anti-Zionist communities because that's what they were at home in Europe, and they stood in opposition to the state of Israel when it was created. And I always bring along with me documents. This is when the chief rabbi of Palestine in 1948 was sitting by the United Nations. It's in the United Nations documents, and he said, "We furthermore wish to express our definite opposition to a Jewish state in any part of Palestine." This was the chief rabbi of Palestine. He passed away since then, but
that's
since
the
today,
chief rabbi who lived in 1948.
Yeah, let me just state, when I say chief rabbi, let's be clear, nothing to do with the Israeli rabbinate or their chief rabbi, which is window dressing for their sins. They, whenever they want to condone what they're doing, they're signed off by their rabbinate. We have other chief rabbis.
How many chief rabbis?
There is two. There's the religious community that was there before the Zionism, and it's still today. We have a chief rabbi. As I showed you the picture of his coronation, so to say, and you can see this is the pictures of him in demonstrations. He just issued an edict. Just yesterday, there was put out an edict from the chief rabbi, and this is the chief rabbi of Palestine today, and he issued an edict. And
he is anti-Zionist.
Anti-Zionist. He issued an edict that they should have to close the schools now to go out and demonstrate in the streets of Jerusalem. These are demonstrations. This one is actually in front of the White House when Netanyahu went to visit Obama. But the same thing, these are all demonstrations.
Oh, this is protesting against Netanyahu.
Against the state of Israel, and of course against Netanyahu. But I will show you the picture of this chief rabbi. rabbi, because there's a larger picture of him that we have. And here, this is a picture of him today. And he issued an edict that they should close the schools and they should go out and demonstrate. Why? Because now they're trying to conscript the Jewish youth who never will go serve in the Israeli army because it's a rebellion against God. And they're trying to force them to go in, and they just arrested. They're constantly arresting the teenagers, but now they arrested some girls.
And this is the problem that happened recently.
Now, right, these last 3 days, an escalating demonstrations because they even like crossed the line, and they even took some girls and arrested them. So
we have a clip showing religious Jews demonstrating. Let's have a look at the clip, and then we will continue to talk about this. Now, one of the demonstrators was knocked down
by a train. He didn't stop the train, and God helped that he was deflected, and he flew like a few 20 feet, 30 feet. He flew.
He didn't die.
Thank God, thank God. But
now,
they've already run over many of our people.
Now I understand that this demonstration was organized to protest against the Israeli government forcing young girls to serve in the Israeli army.
Of course, young boys also, but because they take everybody and they don't care, they have no morality, and they take boys and girls, so they fought. But in this case, the last arrests was a few girls that they arrested, and now, so of course, there's boys sitting there in the prisons because they're not serving because they refuse to serve, and this is an ongoing.
There are many of them.
That are constantly in and out because we have demonstrations. They throw them goes in and out. So this is
now.
Yeah.
Let me put to you the argument that the secular Jews or the Zionists put forward, that if you are citizens of the state and if you benefit from the state, then you should serve the state. So these Jews, this is how the argument goes, that these Jews are citizens of the state but refuse to serve in the army.
In other words, like you're saying, the Palestinians that are being held in prison should really serve in the army because they're giving them good food in the prison. So the Palestinians should be very thankful to the state of Israel for what they're doing. They created a state against our communities. They tried to abolish our religion. They assassinate our rabbis. They brutally beat them. Spiritually, they tried to murder us, which they do everything they can to uproot the religion. They have the gay rights march right in the center of Jerusalem. They put the swimming pools right in the center. They try to kosher, Sabbath, anything they can, they try to destroy. And then we should be thankful to them and serve in their army. But anyway, even if they would give us kosher and everything good, we would give our lives rather than serve, because we're not allowed to have a state, and it's a rebellion against God. And they should go from where they came. We don't want to have them there. They have no right to exist, and we would never serve in their army.
So it would seem to me that these religious Jews or observant Jews who live in Palestine today, they are not much different from the Arabs who have Israeli citizenship despite themselves.
Let me explain. It's very interesting, actually. There are many who refuse. They don't even register. And many, when they get arrested, they drag them in front of the judge, and the judge says, what you do? You did this and that. And he says, Eini makir. I don't recognize you. I don't recognize you. In other words, you don't even exist as far as we're concerned. They drag him back in the jail, and then it goes back and forth the game. But basically, many don't even register. But the problem is, I mean, it's a moral question, because then if they have to leave the country, they can't leave the country. So it's a very hard problem. It's a catch-22 situation. There's a moral question here if they should register or not. Many don't, but many have no choice and they register. But usually, what they would do is they register as not normal, so they shouldn't have to go to the army. army and so forth. That's the sad situation. The chief rabbi of Palestine urged everybody to leave as much as they can. Who can? People have older parents. They can't get visas to go to other places. It's very hard to leave. That's why you have such a strong community who's anti-Zionist. You see people dressing like religious Jews in the settlements. You're always seeing it looks like religious.
This is the problem. The problem is that for people who observe from the outside, they cannot tell the difference. Because many settlers who grab Palestinian land, who force Palestinians out of their homes, they behave religiously, or they are perceived as behaving religiously.
You see, that's part of the Nakba, the tragedy, that people can't discern between the two. But most people recognize that when they dress as we do, that they're certainly not Zionists. But there is, being that they're on the periphery of the community, and they're by the settlements, and they're always in the papers because they're always doing their crime and being in the settlements. So you see them all the time, and they go with yarmulke, it's called. They cover their head. So you think that that's part of that. Most of these people come from non-religious families, or if they were religious, marginally, what they call modern religious, which is a euphemism for making compromises in their religion. And they've bought into Zionism that it's many of them are gullible, or they're idealists from these modern communities that don't know the basic religion. So they think, they buy into the Zionist propaganda that we're doing God's will, and these, this youth, like I say, idealist youth, and they go to these settlements. But the core religious community, the ones who know the religious, the Ivy League of Jewish teaching is Brisk, it's called, all the ones in every community invariably around the world. And in Jerusalem, or any of the other parts of Palestine where you have the very religious communities, they're anti-Zionist through and through, because it's clear that it is antithetical. It's totally contradictory.
And then one may conclude from this that they are not at all involved in any of the settlement programs. Oh
no! Not only that, you know that most of our religious observers, they will not even step over the borderline of what is considered like that was taken over after 67. Not that they hold that we can have this area from 48, but that area is like double wrong, and they won't even go over that to those settlements. They won't even go there. Who's talking about they won't go to the Al-Aqsa Mosque area? That which is any Jew who's religious knows that it's haram to go into because simply we're not pure. We haven't gone for 2,000 years.
Although those who campaign to take Al-Aqsa Mosque, or to occupy it, or at least, or to share it, they claim to do this in the name of Judaism.
That's the same story. They come from, again, secularized modern, what they call modern Jews, which is compromised religion. They may go with even pay as you see the settlers and things like that. But again, as somebody who knows a little bit of the Jewish, you take one look, you can see these are settlers. They're not from the religious core, the real religious communities. These are part of Zionists that were ostracized right at the beginning of Zionism in Europe. They made a fatwa, issued, all the rabbis of Europe, 200 of the greatest rabbis issued a fatwa. We even put out a book called The Rabbis Speak Out.
This is their fatwa?
This is, it has the 130-year record of all the greatest rabbis. We didn't put all the rabbis because it would be like volumes. It's the greatest rabbis, or the leaders of the communities from every four corners of the earth, and each one in their style issued their statements. I mean, like the Chavetz Chaim, I'll just mention one, who was the leader of Judaism and the codifier of Jewish law, Rabbi Yisrael Meir HaKohen. He was somebody who passed away before the state was created, and he very clearly stated, as did all the others, that Zionism is a cancer. He wrote that it's like a dead limb of our bodies, and it has to be cut away. It may have to be cut away. This is here, Rabbi Yisrael Meir HaKohen. He was, everybody knows, you say his name, it's called the Chavetz Chaim, the one who wants life. That's the name of his book. He put out the Chavetz Chaim, and he lived till 1933, so it was before the state even. And he wrote, the Zionists are dead limbs of our people which cause the entire body to rot. And I could write each one in there, the greatest leaders of all Europe and in Palestine, Sephardic, Ashkenazi communities, they all said the same thing in just different ways. Rabbi Chaim Eliezer Shapiro, the Munkatcher Rebbe, it was called Munkatcher Rebbe, blessed memory, wrote, the Holy Land never experienced such an exile as now, when deniers of God are waving their hands over Jewish dwellings to destroy Jewish holiness. The Zionists are destroying Jewish holiness, to trample on our faith, which rejects redemption of the body without redemption of the soul. In other words, they're calling it redemption. They call themselves the beginning of redemption, but our Torah rejects redemption of the body, that you should bring our bodies without the souls. In other words, the Zionists are destroyers of Judaism.
Then what happened, Rabbi White? What happened in the past century that made a majority of Jews in the beginning oppose Zionism, become eventually a minority? Or are you not a minority?
No, we are a minority, unfortunately. But it's very simple. I mean, it's not simple, but the first issue is, we say, as many great rabbis, Rabbi the Briskerov said, this is the works of Shaitan, because it defies logic. It defies logic how a United Nations body was created to bring supposedly democracy, rights for everybody, and they went into the Holy Land and they decided to establish a state that is for a specific religion, excluding others. In other words, they don't say it's a democracy. Imagine if Muslims decide to create their own state or call themselves Islamic State, which I think you've heard the name before, and somebody would come along, imagine the UN would say, that's perfect, well, let's back this. They make an Israeli state, a Jewish state, and in a place where the majority were Muslims. I mean, it just defies logic how they can do it. In fact, Secretary Kerry even spoke about this. Like, is it Jewish state or is it a?
Yeah, but what changed the mood?
Oh, wait. So that was. I'm just showing that. And yet they ratified the state, and so it's the works of Satan. It defies the same thing as in the Jewish community. The Jewish, the Jewish communities were led in Europe by the rabbis, and before Second World War, they didn't have a foothold in these communities. Then Hitler, the first people they killed were the rabbis and the teachers. In Russia, they did the same thing. The teachers were the ones who were the first to be murdered and liquidated. So what happened afterwards? So the community was left an orphaned community. Then Zionism got also rights to the land through the British, the Balfour Declaration and so forth, and they got rights to the land. They turned to these refugees and who had no leaders, and they manipulated that many of them should come to the land there, to the Holy Land, from the refugee camps in Europe, and they started giving them land, and they used fear-mongering. They said, you see the Arabs, those are continuation of the Nazis. They're the ones who killed you in Europe. Of course, those were times before internet and all that. What did they know? And they used many different issues. Fear-mongering. They used the fact that we were leaderless almost entirely. We had a few remnants of great rabbis who stood by us and who were threatened with their lives, who were murdered, some of them. And so that is the way they were able to encroach on the Jewish community. Britain, even in the 1920s, Britain went and said that every Jew in Jerusalem, in Palestine, has to register under the Zionists. Believe that? Unbelievable.
They wanted to force them to do that. To force them.
We were barely able to release ourselves from that. So I'm just saying how they were able to put the control. I've just, even this last 2 weeks ago, I was speaking to, not this last Sabbath, I was in London. I was here in London because I went to Paris on Sunday, and I spoke to a Jew whose grandfather died from hunger because they refused to take money from the Zionists. And
they considered anything that came through the Zionists to be unclean.
Haram.
Haram. That's the best term.
That's what it is. It is. Because their thing is impure, and it'll just make the people impure. It's not. We'll never accept it. It's impossible to accept it. We've given our lives for hundreds of years. Jews were burnt at the stake, not to give up their religion, not to they were asked, will you bow down to an idol? The children were proud. People were proud that their children died rather than give up their belief in God. And here, what is the Zionists doing? They are trying to uproot because what is Zionism? The whole thing is rooted in blasphemy altogether. They scorn us. They say, where's God to protect you? Our Uzi, our gun is going to protect you. And then one side of the mouth they scorn our belief in God, our trust in God, and from the other they turn around with this pious look and they say, oh, God gave us the land. It's full of hypocrisy. When I was in France, I'll still remember, because it's so important to France. They have there's such fear of them from the Jewish community. They're afraid. That's in our community in New York or in Jerusalem. We still go out and demonstrate. In France and the majority of places around the world where the Jewish community is not so solid, they're afraid to go out and demonstrate.
And there are not many Orthodox Jews in France.
No, but when the Orthodox ones, I flew in on a plane and I still remember this, when President Arafat was dying, and I came in, and a teenager came over to me. He was around 18, 19, and he said, "Rabbi, I recognize you because I went on a demonstration that you were on." And he lives in France. He said, "I'm warning you, Rabbi, here you don't make any demonstrations because the Zionists are dangerous, terribly dangerous."
And evidently they attacked you.
And you see what they do. And you had to hear the language. They brutally attacked us. They weren't afraid. You saw the police was standing there. They weren't afraid even of that. In New York, at least, they attacked us many times. But when the police they were protected, you know. So that causes that the hundreds of thousands of Jews around the world who would join us in demonstrations are silent. They're intimidated. I'm not saying it's it's an excuse, but that is the facts. You can't blame somebody. We do demonstrate, and still we would have many, many more in all our communities. But in Jerusalem, it doesn't even get shown. We have tens of thousands of Jews demonstrating in New York. We go to the United Nations because our communities are quite near to the Manhattan. Every year, we have tens of thousands of Jews demonstrating in front of the Israeli embassy.
But I guess the mainstream media doesn't cover this.
They never cover our demonstrations. You can see in front of the U.S. We take here. This is blocks and blocks long. We have across from the Israeli embassy, which is on 2nd Avenue. It's right a block after the United Nations. Many times during the year, it never gets covered. Our demonstrations.
Well, Rabbi Wais, I can only pray for God to really help you in your endeavors.
Help us.
And yes, help us both. Yes. And it's always a great pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
At الحوار and in London.
Yeah, and God should help. We're waiting and yearning for the time that we can go and turn to the Palestinians and say, "Here is back your land," and we humbly ask. We would love to reside amongst you, but here's your land. How you like it, take it, and give them back their respect.
Inshallah, let's hope this happens soon.
And inshallah, sooner nowadays, peacefully. Also, God should help you, which He can do it, because He brought the USSR, destroyed. We say you have to stand up and do for Palestine. At the same time, pray to God, because He just like in USSR overnight. Nobody would have believed the super. He can do it, and He will do it. God help, inshallah, sooner nowadays.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
وشكرا لكم على حسن المتابعة، وإلى لقاء آخر في جسور في المستقبل. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.